The following speaker is Francois Pachet. Francois Pachet is director of the Spotify Creator Technology Research Lab, where he designs the next generation of artificial intelligence-based tools for musicians. He's also a guitar player and has composed and published several albums. I fished it somewhere. Okay, I will continue since he. So prior to prior to Spotify, Francois has been director of the Sony Computer Science Lab in Paris, where he conducted the ERC-funded Flow Machine project, in which he has developed technologies for style imitation and the user constraints. Which, which is what he will be talking to us today.
Like this, oops. Yeah, thank you, Xavier, and all the organizers for inviting. I didn't know there were so many ERC projects on music. I thought Xavier was really the first, and probably you were, but then so many, so you really created something, Xavier, there also. Yeah, I think it's also interesting to hear these talks and Atao and Xavier later and all the talks this morning. What strikes me the most is that it seems that all this research is really deeply driven by obsessions that all these researchers have had for a very long time. I think Xavier was always interested in world music. It was not an invention. Atao has been doing gesture-based music and so these projects are somehow the crystallization of long obsessions that each of us have had, sometimes coming from the childhood, I would say. And in my case, the obsession was really questions like, why I am so attracted by the Beatles, of course, but not only this title, these things. Really, I'm attracted in ways that are so deep and so mysterious. And I always wanted to understand why I like this and I don't like that. And in some sense, this project is related, in some sense, to the question. So I thought, after a while, the best way to understand what's a good piece of music, but I'm going to talk mainly about mainstream music here, why it's compelling. It was actually to make one or to make some, and using AI as a tool for investigation. So this project, Flow Machines, was really about trying to endow machines or algorithms with a possibility to generate stuff and then see how we could use these machines to compose really compelling songs. I'll say a few words about that, starting by this. Yeah, it's not very focused, doesn't matter. It's a four-voice piece. Well, you don't hear four here, but it was composed in 56. So it's actually the first AI generation of music. It was done with Markov chains at that time, with a generate and test method, which is now forbidden if you do research, but still. And it produced actually interesting. If you listen to it today, which is, I think, 70 years, no, 60, I don't remember, it's actually probably one of the best demos in computer-generated music. Before Hello World arrived, of course. But it's very interesting to see how rudimentary the techniques were and how interesting the music was. I will not play it on the web, you can look at it. In some sense, the project was trying to go beyond that, of course, technically, obviously, but also musically. So you have heard about AI, I guess, because every day, everywhere, so AI is eating up the world. And what's interesting is that AI is now better than humans in, we could say, all the tasks which have a well-defined cost function somewhere. That is well-defined in terms of function and, if possible, differentiable function. Then you can train a system, and the system, if you train it well, is better than humans. I mean, obviously, there are actually no exceptions. And so you can, self-driving car, you have well-defined cost functions, you know, number of people you kill, for instance, the cost function you want to minimize. It's well-defined. Recognizing faces, it's the right one, it's not the right one, very well defined. Tumors in the brain, playing Go or chess, all is very well defined. So it's great, and AI, especially deep learning, is working very, very well. And then recently, since I would say 2016, these techniques have been also applied to artistic domains like videos, movies, generation of scenarios, pictures. Images, even cooking, and this is actually a very serious project. There are restaurants in New York serving food that's with recipes generated by AI. So, but what's interesting in all these artistic domains, of course, including music, then there is, of course, as you know, no cost function. Maybe not only it's not differentiable, it's not probably well defined, and maybe there is no cost function at all. And one of the reasons is that we don't understand actually much about the relationship between what the audience perceives and what the composer has been wanting to do. The only thing we can measure is popularity. That's easy to measure, number of streams. But popularity is not a measure of quality of music. It's quite different. So there is no cost function well defined. So you cannot really just train a system and that's it. So you have to do something else. You have to do tools basically. So the thing we did is, apply the machine learning paradigm, which is always the same. You have data, you feed a model, you train a model, and then you build a model. The model is then able to be sampled, so that you can generate something new from the model. And what you generate, by definition, has the properties that were captured from the data, right? And so we have been working on this with all sorts of data, music data, scores, lead sheets, also audio. And in fact, doing this is very easy. You can, a few lines of code, actually, today you can do that. It's not hard. The problem is when you want to add constraints, because you want the user, a musician, to say, well, okay, I want to do a piece like this, like that. I want this theme to occur in the middle, not more than twice. I want the same note to be at the end and at the beginning, that kind of things we call constraints. And in fact, the flow machine projects scientifically was about that, was about how you sampled statistical models of sequences under constraints, right? And I will not talk about that because I don't have enough time, just want to talk about the results. And if you're interested, there are lots of papers, lots of, actually 2 books, and this is one of it's a diagram we think is very nice, but no one understands. It's basically, the ovals are the constraints, all sorts of constraints. I want no more than a cardinality constraint. I want these 2 things to be equal or different, equality constraints, and so forth. And this is a picture which tells which of these constraints are actually polynomial. That is, which ones you can actually solve with reasonable algorithms and which one you don't. In fact, turns out most of them can be solved except a few ones like the equality and all that. But that was the scientific part. And so, again, the model that you can use to train can be, and there are very, very many models today that can be used. The one used in '56 was a first-order Markov chain. Since there were lots of other models, variable order Markov chains, what we did was a constrained variable order Markov chains, max entropy models, which are quite interesting, and then of course, networks of all sorts. And then there are new models now, like VAEs, variational autoencoders, GANs, and so forth. So you have lots of models, but the idea is always the same. So how can you generate new stuff from old one, and what is the relation to creativity, in fact? So what we did, just a way to explain, which start to be a bit outdated, but it's to apply this idea of helomorphism, which comes from Aristotle. So basically, objects are seen as a combination of matter and form. So on the left is matter, and the right is form. On the left is a matter or texture or style. So here's a leopard skin. On the right is a texture. Is a form of a rhino. We can call it structure. We can call it tone strain. And what is new is that with all the AI technologies, you can now separate these two things. And so you can separate and recombine. So you can create, for instance, a new object by applying a texture to a structure. And that's one of the creative acts, is trying out lots of stuff like that, not implying that they are necessarily good, you know. But if you say, oh, it's interesting, I want to do another one, then maybe you start to create a new kind of object, and that's what we were trying to do. So what we did is really to implement the sign, the kind of cross sign, which is a mapping function from a style to a new structure. And it turned out it was quite successful, so I will just give you an example in audio, and then in symbolic, and then show the result. So you know this song, don't you? Oh, well, who knows? Who doesn't, sorry. Well, there are increasing number of people who don't know the Beatles. It's really preoccupying. So you take the score of this song and you consider it as a structure, like a rhino, right? And then you take this. So that's a piece, the intro of Stevie Wonder's song, and you consider it as a texture. You say, I like this choir kind of stuff, and I want to apply it to the score of Michel, and you want to do the same with this voice. You don't care about what he says, you don't care about the melody, about this song, which is called Everything. You just care about this as a texture, right? And you want to say, let's do a cover of Michel or of whatever with these two things. And now you can do this. All right, and so you did that exactly. You did a mapping, and so actually there are lots of things we could talk about. We don't have the time now about all the artifacts, which often are ways and doors to go somewhere else and to explore. You don't necessarily want to remove all the artifacts, especially the melodic and harmonic ones. But so that's let's say style transfer applied to audio to do a cover, because in this case the song existed. Of course, you had the score, the lead sheet. You can do this with So in fact here, what's really nice is the harmony coming from a Super Rich Kids. I don't know if you know this song by Frank Ocean. It's a fantastic song, really, one of the great songs of these years. And he plays a lot of 13 sus4 chords, so he doesn't have 7th chord, right? So sorry to be a bit technical here, but in Girl from Ipanema, the 2nd chord is a G7, this one. But that's not what you hear. You hear a suspended 4th, not a G, but A, because the system found out that this is the closest thing he can use, but it creates a very nice harmonic twist, right? So it's an artifact. It's not a bug, but it's actually what makes, I think, this cover interesting in that case. So you see, it's not necessarily like you want the best, most conformative thing. You want something that opens up ideas, right? Okay. And so you can do this and apply this. So we did this I did this for Ode to Joy, which is the European anthem, because Jean-Claude Bourguignon had asked me, and I could not say no. So how can we reharmonize our anthem? So we did 7. This one is in Bossa Nova, cheesy Bossa Nova from the 70s. But on the web there are many others. All right. So that's for audio. So we did same kind of work for symbolic. It turns out strangely that for symbolic scores, lead sheets, actually more difficult. I'm not sure why. It's more difficult because you have more constraints to satisfy in a lead sheet, in a score, than in audio. In some sense, the ear is is less sensitive to errors. I don't know why, but anyway. So that's a work done by a PhD student, Gaëtan Adjeres. He worked on Bach, which is also like the Iliac suite. They also used Bach as inspiration. With different models, more in the air, like LSTMs and a special architecture. And again, there are papers if you want. So Bach, this is a real Bach, 4 voice. And this is a generated Bach, the same soprano on the top, exactly the same, but then the other voices are generated, played by flute here. It's on the web. You can. It's very, very good. And so what you can show is that the system has really captured all the patterns, the rules somehow that you learn when you go to the conservatory. To learn how to write like Bach takes at least 7 years. It's quite hard. And here the system learned everything by itself, of course. So that's what's impressive. And the colors correspond to typical patterns and cadencias and stuff that you are supposed to learn and be able to re-instantiate. And that's what the system was doing. There were tests to show that people have a hard time figuring out which one is the real ones, even experts and so forth. Okay, paper, if you are interested. Okay, because I want to show something else. That's God Save the Queen. So in the style of Bach, of course, but I've heard that I cannot play this in the UK now because of Brexit, so many people are not happy with first the anthem and then the Bach stuff. Okay. All right, okay, so that's the same thing. So now I want to talk a little bit about a song we did, because again, my obsession as a child was, again, the Beatles, mainstream music, pop music. And of course, we wanted to do with Benoît Carré, the musician who worked with us, to approach to this monument of the Beatles. We say, let's try to do yet a new song by the Beatles or in that style. So what we did is, so first of all, you know the song? Still? All right. So who is a guitarist? I know Atao is a guitarist, but in this song, yeah, it starts by a F minor, E, E flat, D. So you hear the chromaticism, which goes down step by step. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry. So it's a pattern that the Beatles have actually created. There were things like that in Bach even, but not these chromatic things, and they extend it in many ways. So that's a typical Beatles pattern. I'm just taking this as one example, right? So what we did is we fed the system with songs of the Beatles. An interview at the radio, someone a bit aggressive once told me, oh yeah, you put 200,000 songs of the Beatles in the system. Well, they wrote, unfortunately, only 200, but so we tried to make one more. So we put about 40, and the system generated this Daddy's song, which we called Daddy's Car, which had a lot of success, and you can see it on the web. 2 million views for a research video. I mean, usually I have 14, sometimes 20, but... and I want to say what happened in this song. So a little bit later, in the middle. It's me? Someone? That's in the middle. There is this bit, right? So if I play it again, I transpose down. So you can recognize, if you have a harmonic ear, that it's the same pattern of that you have in the intro of Michel. So I will play them both at the same time. That's the pattern of Michel, sorry. And then... So the harmony is the same. So what the system has done is really to capture the pattern, to re-instantiate it in a different context, of course, to create the context around. So that's typical good songwriting, right? That's what people would do. That's not inventing a completely new way of making music, especially tonal music, but that's a very good songwriting, right? So that's again what the AI is interesting is going to do that kind of stuff. So yeah. So at the end of a project, you know, I was not satisfied with demos, and I thought, because you know, how do you evaluate, you know? I can always claim that the music is good, but, you know, what is the value of this claim? And I thought, I mean, obviously the only way to make something valuable is to do real music. And when I say real music, I mean to produce it, which is in itself a lot of effort. You actually need a lot of money to do that. And then distribute it in the ecosystem, that whatever it is, streaming now mostly, but and then see what the audience thinks. Actually, even if you do this, it does not prove much, because if you have a huge success, doesn't mean that the music is good. If you don't have any success, doesn't mean the music is bad. But at least it's a way to provoke criticism and to know a little bit what other people are thinking, right? It's a difficult thing, I mean, in terms of methodology to do that. But I wanted to do it, so we created we produced an album where actually we created a label thanks to partly to the proof of concept project about that. There were lots of legal issues which are really anyway, but so we did this, and we work with a lot of artists, not just Benoit, but many, including Stromae, and many others, and we tried to address different genres like pop, mainstream pop, or electro, jazz, and so forth, and even movie soundtrack in some sense. And we created this, so this was in some sense quite a successful project. Album was out in January. Currently, it has about 6 million streams, so it's quite good for an album. Think about it, by an artist, Skigo, that did not exist before. We didn't have any promotion activity, almost none. So we created the label, but you know, you have to promote also, and that's a very, very difficult thing to do. And I think the songs were quite well received, and lots of press and lots of people talking about it. So I don't have the time here to say everything people think about it. I just, you know, suggest you can listen and say what you think. But I think the ultimate question is, you know, what is the music? What quality? Is it good, not good? Of course, good or not good within the style of the artist that produced it. Not good in itself, which probably does not mean anything. You know? But for like Stromae, for instance, if you consider his style or the ball around what he does, you know, where is this thing in there? So he thinks that this thing is precisely like a little bit above its traditional zone of comfort, we could say. That's what we wanted to do. So in that sense, we are quite happy. And so then I can show you some of the examples. One of the songs I like very much called Sensitive, how it was done. So we wanted to do something in the style, not of the Beatles, too many copyright issues. By the way, that this car was not commercialized. I could not. But that we took another monument for us, which is the Bossa Nova, Tom Jobim. You know that he has an airport in his name in Rio. I mean, this guy is like God, slightly above actually, but and so he's dead. We want, let's do something as good, you know. And so what we took a lot of Bossa Novas from the 60s, right? We fed the system. Things like this, by Jobim precisely in that case. So you know this song probably. And this song is interesting because you see, even if you don't read music, you have long notes, an alternance of long notes and short notes, noir, croche, quarter notes, you know, and then all chromatic. Na, 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 it's Brownian motion, you know, we never have any big jump, or very rarely. And all these harmonies are quite chromatic and intricate and complex and rich, whatever it means. There is no clear definition, but it's not like F major, C7s, right? It's more interesting, lots of diminished and stuff like that. And so what we generated was this. Oh, you don't see it. So this on the left. So I will play it, but you see there is also an alternance of long and short notes. So the texture, in some sense, is there. Quite chromatic, and harmonies I will play. And to play it, I will not play the MIDI, which we generated. I will play what you get when you do audio style transfer, but using, in that case, a piano track from Benoit himself on a French song he had done years ago, and the voice of King Crimson. Why? Well, this is an artistic choice, right? He wanted to do that. There is no reason, but it turned out it was quite interesting. And this is the final version, which was produced. It's slightly orchestrated, but the core of the thing is.
He turned around in fear. We'll carry you on the breeze if you turn to appear. We entered on the wind, entered on the wind. It's not clear why. In my mind, not to talk, just to hear this sound, pursuing ease.
So forth. So in terms of songwriting, melody-wise, I think, but what I think is no value, is really very good. It's really hard to write that kind of a very simple yet catchy and balanced melody. But so we produced it and we released it and it's out there and now people can say and think what they want. And I'm interested in actually comments about the music itself, not the. And so we composed, yes, I'm almost done. We composed 15 songs. One of them was with, is this one was done with Stromae. So Stromae is a big singer in Europe, in France and Belgium. And he wanted to have like a music from the Cap Verdean. So all the rhythms, he brought them. He brought stems. And he worked in a few sessions and he came up with this. But all the stems you hear are generated from other stems, melodies generated, and the voice is Keisha, who is a singer in Canada. And this is really mainstream, trying to see if we can make it to the targeted audience. I just play a few seconds. Okay, and then you go up to this dancing thing. But this is, melody generated, most stems generated and produced by the people who produce Stromae's music usually. There are video clips and so forth. This is Stromae in the studio. At that time, he had stopped.
Entre la musique organique et la musique électronique, quoi, ou la composition électronique. Enfin, c'est une espèce de gap. C'est ouf, demain, c'est sûr, on fera tous de la musique comme ça, en fait.
So he said, c'est ouf, demain on fera tous de la musique comme ça, which means it's crazy. Tomorrow we'll all make music like this. I didn't pay him to do that, to say that, and I think he's right. How many seconds? I'm done, or I still have a few seconds? 5 seconds? A few, yeah. So a few is more than 5. So these are the titles. And, one of the things which is a sign of a good song to me is whether it's an earworm. That is, you listen to it a couple of times, it stays in your head or not. And I think many of them, if not all, are earworms. I'm not able to prove it. I'm not able to say why. But there are many, and that's probably because the AI precisely suggests ideas which are not exactly in the style. They're a little bit outside, but not too far, which I think is probably one of the components of earworm. So there are lots of very nice melodies, like the whistle theme here. This one. That's just one extract. Just this one, Je vais te manger, is with the Pirouette, a French pop group. The melody. This is quite conventional. Oh no. So there are nice harmonic variation, modulation, which are nicely packaged within a whole song, and many interesting stuff. Going on also with
Just keep on rolling, keep on
Like this
rolling,
nice melodic movements.
on rolling.
Or this Magic Man was. Wow, okay. Now let me just take a last one. Cake Woman was a jazz thing we did with Meredith Médéric.
Never see your life into this, and that you exactly getting crazy.
So this is sung by Camille Berthaud, who is a top singer now in France, jazz singer. All the harmonies here are very nice, generated by the system. And so forth. Okay, I have to stop. So now I just want to. So now there are new models, but still same ideas. Very powerful stuff, AI, yes, but it's unclear the limits. It's unclear how to use it productively to do interesting music. Because again, no cost function, no loss function, very few feedback from users. This is coming, but it's still not something that easily you can find easily. Lots of problems with the legal aspects, because basically all this kind of borderline very often when you reuse, of course, an artistic work. Even if what you do is not plagiaristic, even if there is no trace, it's like homeopathy. There is no trace in the end of the actual product, but still, legally there is a path that has yet to be invented to do that. I want to say that this project was actually very successful. I mean, if you look at it from a scientific viewpoint, a lot of papers, books, 2 monographs, 1 comic book, Max Order, from another project, dissemination project, a video. We created a label, we created 2 albums. So there is 1 album coming next week, which is Hello World remixed. So we took all the songs, we took all remixers and said, let's try to do something more mainstream, targeting different communities, electro, rap, whatever. So then you can, but keeping, of course, the core musical ideas that were generated by the system. Lots of press, very tiring. I mean, if some of you want to do a project, think about it, it's exhausting. I don't know what you think. I'm tired, lots of work. But very exciting, and I think I understand more about now today about this big question, why do I like this or not? I don't have the solution, but I think it's just probably much more complicated than what I thought in the beginning. That's one of my conclusions. But in the way, we did a lot of interesting stuff. A vinyl record, which is a collector object. You can buy it now. You can buy 2, if you're a countryside house or friends. That's a book I will skip, and then 2 books coming out very soon. One on deep learning for music, done with Jean-Pierre Briot, which basically a big survey, and one about all the technologies we develop. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. We have time for 1 or 2 questions. 2, 3. Okay. Sorry. Next one.
Thank you very much for your talk. I'm interested in modeling and learning the structure of musical pieces, so like really large-scale structures. So my question is how do you represent and learn these structures? If you have a song, like the verse and the chorus, that you have these typical things with a bridge and so on, or are they as an input for the algorithm to generate the pieces?
So in this project, which is already 1 year old, by the way, we didn't generate structure. Actually, I don't know of any work able today to generate proper structure. There are many people trying to do stuff, to generate correlations, to generate some amount of repetition. Lots of interesting things, especially with the new models, like memory models, attention models. So there is, but honestly, there is no one able to produce a full piece with an intro A, B, A, completely out of scope. Actually, we don't even have proper data. And so no, we didn't do that in that project. We studied now, but what I found the musicians, they do not care so much about that because it's really easy for a musician to do that. So if you think about a tool, the tool should do what the musician has trouble doing, not the things that he can do and not the thing that he likes to do. Because making the structure is something that's kind of enjoyable. You know, you have the impression that you really do something. And that's also another lesson, is that if the software is doing too much, then the people get less involved, because it's not them, you know. At the end, these are going to be songs signed by people, so they want to feel that they've done something. They have done something that was important. So, but I'm not trying to dismiss the problem. The problem is very hard, but so we didn't do it in that project. But it was not so much of a problem to actually to do interesting music.
Thank you.
Next question here.
Is there a way somebody can play around with these things? Have you released some kind of API or library or planning to release or software? Open source?
I hope someone would not ask this question. No, it was done in Sony, with Sony and partly UPMC University of Paris 6. I'm not there anymore, so it belongs to them, and I don't know what they want to do with it. But now I'm at Spotify. At Spotify, we are developing other tools, and then the idea will be to make them, of course, available somehow. So the future of this technology is like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't even know what to say, to be honest. But there are lots of public stuff, papers. All the ideas, important ideas, are pretty much all out there. What the Sony wants to do, I don't know.
Very short, please.
Hello. And it's very interesting talk. And I'm a starter, so might be a little bit slow. So I want to ask the question is about the style transfer. So maybe you know some work from the
WaveNet.
Facebook, yes, the Facebook AI.
Yes, last week.
Yes, and they have published this work called this universal
Yes.
style transfer.
Yeah.
But also there's a lot of controversial, as some people said, it's not this.
It's not legal.
No, it's not the real style.
Of the source is not faithfully captured. Yeah.
Transfer. Yeah, yes. So I want to ask you a question at how you, if you do this style transfer and how you can you give some insight about that?
About what exactly? About is it the style that we capture or not?
Yeah,
I know I cannot. I don't know what is the style.
you don't know.
I don't know. I cannot define. I think that the computer scientists have a definition of style, which is very simple. A corpus is a style. So a corpus is a sample of a style. A style is whatever has generated the corpus. The problem is that if you use deep learning, you need very large corpuses. So the Beatles is 200 songs, and they're already quite prolific. Usually the training sets are very, very small, very small. So this notion of style, I would say, does not really apply there. But to me, it does not really matter. Because in France, people like to define words, so I don't know what is style. I don't really care. What's important is that at the end, you have a tool that gives good ideas to the user. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the case, and I think we can do that. But we cannot say what is a style. I think it's a very ill-defined question, actually, probably. Okay. I think I have to stop. Thank you.